Maybe it is age that lessens our urgency to get from point A to point B. Maybe it is the evolving head and heart space which we currently reside. Maybe it is a blossoming awareness of the magic we may miss when we don't look up or down or over. Or maybe it is all of that, when we become more present in what we are doing and we release our thoughts to the wind. For this week's adventure, we're doing a retake. So in a previous video, I had mentioned that we had driven 2+ hours from home, spent the night in the van, only to get up the next morning to some drizzle and decided to bag the trip, packed it on up, and headed back home without doing our intended hike. So take 2. We stayed in Maine for this adventure, and we headed 2+ hours northwest of our home to the Carabasset Valley area, where you can find, as those who may be familiar, Maine Sugarloaf Ski Mountain. The area is full of all kinds of outdoor adventures. Hiking, of course, with the Appalachian Trail passing through the Bigelow Mountain Range, mountain biking and kayaking on Flagstaff Lake. For this adventure, we chose hiking. So after a nice dinner at a local restaurant upon arrival and having a leisurely evening at our favorite overnight spot in the area, we were ready to make the short trek to the trailhead of Cranberry Peak for this trip to start our hike by 8:15 a.m. the next morning. Cranberry Peak is part of the Bigelow Range. It is a 2.9-mile hike up with about 2,053 feet of elevation gain. If you've watched the last couple of videos that I've posted, you know that I am trying to more intently connect to the environment that we're around when we go on these adventures. And that connection can often come through our senses. So when we're out there, we can, use our eyes to see a little more. We can listen a little more. We can touch a bit more. We can smell or breathe a little more deeply. Maybe we taste, maybe we grab some blueberries and that activates us. And of course, there's always the sixth sense that some of us may speak of, and that can come into play as well, because we can sense a little more when we're out in nature, hence the whispers of the winds from a couple videos ago. So as we're trying to open our senses in such a way, we must become more present. And often that is getting out of our heads and getting more into our hearts as well, and perhaps slowing down, taking that slow hike or slow walk or slow bike or kayak or whatever it is you may lean toward. I grabbed a book while we were on vacation last summer, and I picked it up as I was thinking about this. It is called A Philosophy of Walking. It's by Frederick Gross. And there was one point in it I just wanted to share real quickly. It is one of the secrets of walking, a slow approach to landscapes that gradually renders them familiar, like the regular encounters that deepen friendship. So basically to slow down and really gather the things that you are seeing, hearing, sensing out there. And so the lessons come from the mountains, from the waters, from the winds, and on all these adventures. And for me, they now stay with me, that I can take forward on our next adventure, to slow down, to be present and aware, and to listen to what nature has to share with us. So let me now answer the 3 questions that were asked by the Whispers of the Wind during the hike from the Breaking Routine video, and apply them now to the Cranberry Peak hike. So the first question, of course, was, what inspired me on this adventure? The magical landscape inspired me. I wish you actually could have been there. I felt like the scene where the Grinch's heart grows 3 sizes. Not because I was in a bad mood to begin the hike, but because I was so overwhelmed by the landscape that it created this feeling of love, of joy, peace, excitement, and awe from me. Because we began our hike at 8:15 a.m., there was still moisture from the night, which made the moss that covered the mountain in kind of that middle mile of the hike just come alive. And I was swept up in its magical feel, like we were in the middle of some magical fairyland. Luckily, Tom has a little bit of patience with me for when I'm distracted and slow hiking, at least on the way up, that is. And luckily, there were blue markers to keep me moving in the right direction when I did get distracted. The second question from the wind is how I grew on this adventure. So I would say that the experience kind of that has culminated over the summer, but really on this hike as well, is that I believe more. And for those that may not know, I wrote a book called The Spiritual Awakening of an Analytical Mind, because I come from a very linear or practical mindset. And so with that said, my believability meter, we'll call it, on this journey that I'm on rises at a pace that I can handle. And that's not always a fast pace, we'll say. So although I'm very far from where I was 8 or 9 years ago when I began believing in more, we'll say, the adventures of this summer, of being out in nature this summer more particularly, have moved that meter for me. I would say the believability meter that all of us are part of something bigger. That's what has risen in a way. I go back to a hike that Tom and I did earlier this summer. And as we were, I guess at the peak we met him, but he and I happened to stop at the same point for a little rest for a moment, or we were taking it slowly down the hill. And it was this older gentleman, I'm guessing late 70s, early 80s. And he and I were chatting. He was doing a solo hike for the day. He had moved into that area like 16 years prior when he retired. And he told me, and I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, but that by placing ourselves out in nature, we are giving ourselves the opportunity to experience the wonders that nature may present to us. So if we don't get out there, we aren't going to have these experiences. So the lesson is that we just need to get out there, and nature will present us with these wonders oftentimes. So nature has lessons for us. Nature is desperately wanting to share with us, for us to connect to nature, for us to believe in all that nature has to offer us. Be it a lone white lady slipper you passed on another hike and only noticed because you slowed down and looked around, or on a different mountain on a different day, a lone pink lady slipper, or ghost pipes that you did not notice on the way up the mountain, but you spotted them on the way down, or blueberries that arrive in bounty just when your light breakfast is wearing off, or the intricate yet immense work of a spider that you only notice when the sun is shining on its web, but then you unknowingly walk under it on the way back downhill. Or could it be the home of a fairy tucked in the mossy landscape? And why not, if we believe? And the last question that the wind asked me to think of on these adventures is, what am I grateful for from this adventure? And I would say for this adventure, it is the guidance of the land, or nature in general, perhaps. And so just as the whispers of the wind put these 3 questions out to me that I take on all these adventures, so I'm not just going on these adventures for the sake of doing them, but I'm taking something from it. I'm taking a pause to realize what inspires me, how I grew, and what I'm grateful for. So I've heard these whispers previously, prior to the wind even. What was different on this day, that was all normal for me, was that as we began the hike and started ascending a little bit more steeply, my breathing was different. The air felt heavy to me, and I started having a panic, maybe a small little panic attack, that, oh my God, what would I do if I have this on the mountain? Like, I'm starting to have a hard time breathing. And so I sensed that I needed to get my hands on rocks, on trees, on the beautiful moss that was growing, and breathe that in and recycling it. Were they giving me energy? Were they giving me oxygen? I don't know, but it got to the point that my breathing was fine without me really giving second thought to it, or maybe it was a distraction too. Second thought to it, I was lighter in mood and spirit, and I probably could have skipped up that mountain, even though it's some tougher spots and some rock scrambles as well. So that's really what I'm thankful for, that these guided messages come to me. And when I did that, that's when that moss-covered third of a mountain just opened up and became alive and made me believe in a lot more. And that's what I'm grateful for. This hike on Cranberry Mountain became so magical that it became one of my favorite hikes that I've done so far. And the interesting thing is, I thought of one of my soon-to-be sister-in-laws first, because I know she would have loved the whole thing. And the second group that I thought of was all of you. I wish you could have been there to experience the magic of that mountain. And before I leave, I hope that you will all go out and have an adventure. I hope that you will be present, that you will slow down, and that you will allow the magic to find you, or for you to find the magic. Before I leave you, I've got one more. Here we go. When you are walking, nothing really moves. It is rather that presence is slowly established in the body. When we are walking, it isn't so much that we are drawing nearer, more that things out there become more and more insistent in our body. The landscape is a set of tastes and colors and scents which the body absorbs. And I couldn't agree more. So thank you for joining me today, or whenever you should watch this. I hope you will come back for the next video. And in the meantime, be well and keep stepping forward. Thank you.